We're joined now by the National Publicity Secretary of the APC, Felix Morka. Felix, thank you for joining us on Newsnight.
Thank you.
Okay, well, some would say it's not yet Uhuru for the APC. It's been 100 days, so where do we go from here?
Thank you very much. Yesterday, the frolic by the Labour Party and its candidate, the People's Democratic Party and its candidate, was brought to a screeching halt by the verdict of the tribunal, which found that Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the current president of the Federal Republic, won the last election that was held. This has been a long-awaited decision, but it was very anticlimactic because, with all the energy and all of the talk and the hype and the almost ruthless assertions that the election was, not free and was not fair, the tribunal, gave a verdict that completely trashed the very foundation of the suggestion that that election was not free and fair. To the contrary, the verdict was absolutely magnificent and total in its review of every point, blow by blow, every motion, every argument, every witness deposition that was brought before it, and ruled that these parties did not pass muster, did not meet the standards of the law in proof of the allegations. Now, a law court is not the market square where you can go and scream and make jests and all of that. When you go to the court, you go there with serious, cogent evidence of, in proof of the allegation that you've come with. But that was not the case, and the tribunal was eloquent in its verdict yesterday on all of those points.
Well, you would say so, definitely. I mean, the tribunal's verdict was definitely in your favor. But would you say there's a sense of moral victory when, there's still this seeming cloud hanging over, this victory of Bola Tinubu at the polls? The Labour Party, the PDP, they're insisting they're going to the Supreme Court, so it's not yet Uhuru. How is that going to affect things moving on, especially as you've just celebrated first 100 days in power? It would be nice to also find out, from you, get your own assessment of the first 100 days. But how much of a dark cloud will this be over the, Tinubu administration?
There's no cloud. There's no cloud. I mean, anyone who sees any cloud anywhere after yesterday simply has some foggy vision. I don't think it's, a cloud, a real cloud in the true sense of the word. Because there was nothing. And since the judgment came down yesterday, I've been reading all of the commentary by the opposition and their lawyers. I have not heard anyone even attempt to give an example, to even suggest anything that was discussed before this court that came down on a side where they were truly disappointed. There's no such statement. Nobody has articulated it. Not the candidates themselves, not their representatives. The gentleman who left here did not suggest that on this point we feel like the tribunal erred. Nobody has said that because there's nothing to say.
But they've not been handed the judgment.
No, but
they haven't been given, so in a way that they will enable them, look at all of the
No, but this was
all the points made by the tribunal.
But this was a decision rendered over so many hours. I listened to the judgment. Any lawyer who was in that courtroom or who was outside the courtroom listening to that judgment would have an opinion, would say, you know what, this point appears to have been lost on this court. Nobody has, even attempted to speculate on that because it would be ridiculous. Not with the level of detail and the level of, completeness with which this verdict was given. On that point, people were even screaming out.
Yeah, the gentleman who just left here, sorry to butt in, he talked about IREV, INEC's promise to deploy the IREV. As a matter of fact, INEC did promise and said, look, nothing is going to stop INEC from, transmitting
a promise
through the IREV.
A promise.
But in the judgment, of course, the tribunal, says that, look, it was left to the discretion of INEC to deploy or not to deploy IREV. So
You know,
Hey,
when you speak the language of discretion,
they've raised that.
When you raise the language of discretion, that's, you know, you are veering on a different, you know, tangent. Let me put it, you know, simply so our viewers and those who are listening can understand. If I promise you that I'm coming to visit you on Sunday, and on Sunday something comes up and I'm not able to actually come, when I see you on Monday, you know, I can say, you know what, hey, I'm so sorry I couldn't make it yesterday. Something came up and I couldn't come. Now, and then the next day you go to court to bring a fundamental rights enforcement action against me that I didn't show up at your house on Sunday. You do not have a constitutional right to my visit. I promised to visit you, but I couldn't. And I said, you know, I'm sorry, because I know I may have wasted your time. I may have actually, you know, I mean, you might have been occupied doing something else.
So what are you driving
the point I'm making is
this,
that the issue of electronic transmission is not one that is mandated by law. INEC in its own, you know, operations, just like the court admitted cameras into the courtroom yesterday. That's not the norm. But the court in its discretion said, look, this is an important, you know, decision we're making. So let us allow the cameras, you know, in the courtroom for that period of time.
Okay.
Does not mean that tomorrow, any lawyer can now go and say, look, you know, this court must allow cameras. So my point is that IREV was, you know, a device by INEC to facilitate, you know, I mean, for people to have a glimpse of what was going on during the election. But that does not rise to the level of constitutional obligation on the part of INEC, which is the point that these parties were litigating.
Right. We understand that there are leeways and there are loopholes in the legal framework. We'll talk about that later on. But then let's put that on hold and talk about your 100 days in office. 100 days, the first 100 days should have been spent building the foundation for the next 3+ years. Would you say that in the last 100 days that your party has put on the ground enough framework, enough structure to hit the ground running for the rest of your tenure?
Absolutely. The first 100 days of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as a matter of fact, by my assessment and by the assessment of anybody who is being objective about what's going on, far exceeds the record of some administrations, you know, through a number of years. This government in the first 100 days has enacted policies that so many governments before it didn't have maybe the vision, maybe the courage to do. They've done that. And that is setting your foundation deep in the soil, not a fleeting kind of thing that is just all, you know, sound and fury with no suggestion of, you know, action. These are fundamental decisions that have held us down. Yes, in the immediate, you know, repercussion, people are facing greater difficulty. Take the fuel subsidy, take the attempt to harmonize the exchange rate, for example. Because when you speak about it, that's what a lot of Nigerians are feeling. But on those two counts, now don't forget that all of the candidates who contested this last presidential election campaigned on the promise to remove, you know, subsidies.
So you admit it.
But the how was a different thing entirely. We don't have that much time. Some analysts would actually say, yes, strong policies, but with weak outcomes. Let's talk about the ministry.
No, please.
Yeah, you will definitely respond to that. The issue of ministerialists took forever. It didn't look like this government was actually, came with a sense of urgency and, you know, hitting the ground running like it promised. It took quite a long time before we,
when a government, you know, previous governments didn't have any ceiling. It was an open-ended thing. The president could appoint in the first day or in the first 100 days or even longer. But the law set a ceiling by which time the president was required to appoint, you know, members of his cabinet. He did that within that time frame. Therefore, you know, the suggestion that he took all the time in the world it's not tenable because Felix, he acted within the law.
Okay, good. We don't have we actually don't have the luxury of time. We have to start wrapping this up here. Okay, so would you? How would you assess the quality of life of the average Nigerian? Because earlier, when you said in the first 100 days that some of the policies have come with some harsh consequences, are you admitting that the first 100 days has dealt an unimaginable blow on the living standard of an average Nigerian?
No, I don't agree. Now, I'll tell you why I don't agree. You know what? For you to make an omelette, what do? You
Break
crack, you break the egg. You must break the egg. For us to be set on a sustainable path of development for this country, for our economy, certain fundamental decisions are required to be made. Previous governments shied away from that. This government has done it. Yes, in the immediate, like I acknowledged, you know, going from, you know, the price point for fuel to where it is now, obviously has, you know, economic, you know, repercussions. Nobody denies that. The president is aware of that, which is why he's saying, but please be aware and be advised that the ultimate benefit of this far outweighs the immediate pain that we may suffer as a result of this policy. Now, I bet that, you know, in time to come, we will look back and say, you know what, yeah, well, that was painful, phew, but you know what, today, this country is better for it. The president is in India today, you know, rallying the economic community to invest in this country. We have pledges of nearly $15 billion that, you know, he has, you know, secured in pledges, which, you know, hopefully will be made good. And with all of that, this country will turn the corner. But these people will not invest when you have this massive disparity in your exchange rate, where there's one formal rate, and then you bring in money that should earn 700 million, for instance, at 700 naira,
okay,
and then you exchange it for 400. Who does that? Who will invest in this country? So the country, the president has set the country on a better footing that I think will, you know, encourage investment and prosperity.
I will hope there are timelines to begin to see the impact of some of these policies. Felix Morka, APC National Publicity Secretary.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.